Will you be traveling anytime soon? Many of us will. We'll be hitting airports and interstates, spending money at theme parks and hotels in places near and far. And that creates some special problems, especially if you use credit cards along the way. That's why we've invited credit expert Gerri Detweiler to join us today on the Dollar Stretcher interview. Gerri Detweiler has done over 3,000 interviews on the Today Show, the New York Times, USA Today, Reader's Digest, and all kinds of other sources. She's authored 5 books. She's the Director of Consumer Education for Credit.com, where she answers readers' questions. She's also responsible for TalkCreditRadio.com, and I consider her one of my go-to sources when I have credit card questions. So, Gerri, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Gary.
As you know, I'm a cash kind of guy, but credit cards do make traveling easier. What general advice do you have for people using credit cards on their travels?
Well, it's not impossible to travel without credit cards, but it can be very difficult, especially when it comes to things like hotel rooms and rental cars. And that's because those companies are going to want to know that you're good for the bill when you leave. And so they will want a deposit in the form of hold on a credit card, or if you use a debit card, they want to put a hold on the estimated cost as well. And the problem with a hold on your debit card is that it can literally tie up your bank account. Those holds, they don't always fall off right away. And so if you're moving from place to place, for example, and several hotels place a hold in several days, then you could find yourself unable to access the cash that you need for spending money in the next place you're going.
Now, is there anything you can do to get those holds taken off? For instance, when you're on night 3 and night 1 still has a hold, can you do anything to get it off?
It's typically automated, and so even if you ask the hotel, can you remove the hold, they'll say, well, it'll fall off in 24 to 48, maybe 72 hours. So it does mean that if you're someone who's, say, close to your credit limit on a credit card, or you have a limited number of funds in your debit card and you're using that, you might want to look to another card as a backup card. So you could, for example, check into the hotel with one credit card, maybe the one that you don't plan to use because it has a high interest rate, but then you check out with your debit card or with another credit card, maybe the card that you will get the most rewards on. That could be one way to deal with that whole issue.
Oh, interesting. And that brings up the topic. I mean, different credit cards have different perks. Are there any features that are particularly attractive to travelers this time of year?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the first thing I would say is if you're traveling overseas, then even Canada or Mexico, I guess those aren't overseas, but out of the country, you want to make sure that the card that you're using does not charge a foreign transaction fee. Those foreign transaction fees will add usually 2 to 4% to the cost of whatever you buy with that credit card. The credit card company takes care of the currency conversion for you, but they charge a fee, and some issuers pass that fee on to consumers. So that's one thing for you to check. I think the other thing to check is the rewards that you'll be earning, and there are some really good travel rewards available. You can get rewards, bonus points for hotel stays, for airline stays. If you fly, I really like the cards associated with the airline that you fly all the time. If you do that, if you're the kind of person who goes online and you find whatever the cheapest airfare is, regardless of airline, then this isn't a strategy. But if you're someone who, let's say, frequents a particular airline, then using their reward card typically will get you free checked baggage, and that's usually for up to 4 people in your group. So with baggage, except for Southwest, everybody charges, what, $25 for the first bag? Family of 4, that could be $100 in savings each way on your trip if you use the reward card associated with that airline.
Now, I think that maybe you just answered the question I was about to ask, but does it pay to get a card just because the rewards match your trip?
I think it can, absolutely, and I'll give you an example. My parents last year, for their 50th anniversary, went on the trip of a lifetime to South Africa for safari, and they actually signed up for a Discover card specifically for that trip because their cards that they already had in their wallet charge foreign transaction fees. And I said, I know my parents. They are not going to want to pay that fee. They're not going to like it. So we went ahead and shopped for a new card for them that made sense. And the other thing to keep in mind is the bonus points that are available. And you may have to shop around a little bit for this, but a lot of cards offer some very rich sign-up bonuses. And there are people who just sign up for cards just to get these bonuses. I got an offer in the mail, for example, from Delta for a card with 50,000 bonus points. Normally their sign-up bonus is like 35,000, but you watch for those special offers and you get extra bonus points. And that could be worth several $100s worth of free travel, because that's essentially a round-trip ticket. Anywhere, certainly in the continental U.S. that they fly.
Now, with the exchange fees, short of contacting the card company themselves, is there any easy way for me to take a look at my card and know whether they charge the foreign transaction fees?
Yeah, foreign transaction fees are one of those things that the card issuer is supposed to disclose first when you sign up, and then it should be disclosed on their website. So if you go to the website, you should be able to find out. If not, a simple phone call or an email to customer support should let you know what the foreign transaction fee policy is. And I should add, this fee can also be charged if you're in the U.S. So if you're booking a flight, for example, and you're still in the U.S., but the company is actually headquartered in another country, you could be charged this fee even though the transaction took place right here in the U.S. from your computer.
Oh boy, that's something you wouldn't expect.
No.
Now, a couple of years ago, my wife and son were traveling by car, and I got a call from the credit card company asking whether the charges were legitimate because they saw them going from state to state. Is it wise to notify your credit card company when you're about to take a vacation?
I think it is, and in fact, I've noticed that card issuers seem to be more proactive about this. I got a notice when I signed into one of my credit card company's online sites recently to pay the bill that they actually want you to tell them when you're traveling. I was on a trip very recently in New York for work, and one of my coworkers, he travels all the time, his card was declined, and it was because he lives in San Francisco, he was making purchases in New York, and that was considered suspicious activity. So to head that off, it makes sense to contact your issuer before you travel and say, here's what I'm doing, do I need to notify you or let you know in any way of where I'll be so that my purchases go through okay?
Now, another thing I know, I advise everyone to keep a list of their credit cards and all the pertinent information hidden away in case their wallet is stolen, lost, whatever. And that what's a good method when you're traveling? Because having it tucked in your dresser drawer 1,000 miles away doesn't do you too much good if you're stuck in San Francisco and you just lost your wallet.
I agree, and if you keep all that information in the same place, that could be a problem. So it might be that you store something on your smartphone, especially if your smartphone is safe and set up with a password or some type of protection so that just anyone can't pick it up and log into your account. It could be a trusted friend or relative. So again, when my parents went on their trip, they gave me all their information. I kept it in a safe place so that if something happened, they would at least know someone has it and they can access it. So that might be another option if you have someone you can trust to give that information to.
Speaking of smartphones, and leads me to smart cards. Here in the States, we've been a little slow to adopt cards with the special chip in that helps identify them, but in places like Europe, I understand that they're almost required there. Do you expect people who go to Europe will have a problem using credit cards that are perfectly acceptable here in the States?
Yes, and when you say we've been a little slow, Gary, you're being very kind. We've been incredibly behind the rest of the world in our credit card technology. The mag strip is a very old technology, and we're behind. And in Europe, there are some purchases where you will not be able to make the purchase with your typical mag stripe card that works just fine here in the U.S. So if you are traveling overseas or out of the country, I would recommend you contact your issuer, find out whether a card with chip and PIN or worst case chip and signature is available. If not, there are a few issuers that are starting to upgrade some of their cards to this. You might want to shop around and see if there's a smarter card for you to sign up for to make your travels as easy as possible. But you're exactly right, it can be a big problem.
Now, I know besides credit cards and traveling, we were talking a little earlier. I know with your work with credit.com that you have a new product that you've been working on with them. I was surprised that the statistics on credit.com said that over 50% of consumers don't know their credit score.
Yeah, that was American Bankers Association survey. 56% of consumers don't know their credit score, which it seems crazy these days, right? Because there's so many sources to get your free credit score now. Your card issuer may show it on your statement. You can certainly check with a website like credit.com and get it completely for free. But a lot of people are not taking the time to do that, and it's really important. And I'll give you a very specific example. I recently checked my credit reports from annualcreditreport.com. That's the federally mandated free credit report website where you can get your reports once a year. And I found a major mistake on one of my reports. One of my lenders is reporting me late 6 months in a row, and I haven't been late. So that's a serious delinquency that really brings down my credit score. So it is important to check. You want to check your credit reports because that's the data that's used to calculate your credit score. And then, of course, you want to check your credit scores so you can see where you stand and see if you're not in the excellent A category for all the major factors that go into your score, then you know there might be some work you can do to get it up there.
Well, I know, and I'm sure you get the same thing probably more than I do, but a common question that I get is, my score is X, whatever X is. How do I get it up 10 points or 20 points or 30 points?
Yeah, and that's exactly what our new product at credit.com is designed to do. It's completely free, and what we do is when someone comes and signs up for a free account at credit.com, we show them their score. We show them the 5 main factors that make up your score: your payment history, your debt, your the age of your credit, the inquiries, and the mix of your credit. And we show them how they're doing on each of those factors. But then we give them an action plan. So we say, okay, if your debt is high, here's specifically what you can do to bring down your debt to improve your score. So let's say you're getting a C for your debt usage, and it's because you're kind of high, close to your balance on some of your credit cards. We'll let you play with a little slider and see if you can afford to put an extra $150 a month towards your credit card debt, how fast you can get those balances down, and what that will do to your score. So it gives you a very specific plan for getting where you want to be with your credit. And if you already have good credit, then we might suggest you look for a better rewards card, for example. Take advantage of the good credit that you've worked so hard to build.
I know, I mean, we tell people at the Dollar Stretch all the time that, I mean, knowledge is good, but if you don't put it into practice, it's just head knowledge. Speaking of knowledge, I want to tell people about talkcreditradio.com. I know you've done the show for a number of years and have a wealth of information there. Would you tell people a little bit about that?
Sure. I have over, I think, 300 podcasts posted there, several interviews with you, Gary. We've talked about a number of money-saving strategies, and I think we most recently talked about taxes. And those podcasts are available for free on the website. They can be downloaded, listened to on iTunes, or listened to online, and they fall in categories like creative ways to save money, boost your credit score, get out of debt, lots of inspiring stories from people who have done those kinds of things and how they did it. So I'm just trying to help people, you know, find their way. Finances can be so overwhelming these days. It feels like it's so much information. I know you guys do a great job of helping people at the Stretcher, and I want to bring it in another format to consumers through the podcast.
Yeah, well, I can vouch for them. They're very valuable. Gerri, thanks for joining us today. We'll have a link to talkcreditradio.com on the article that we do around this, as well as the YouTube channel. And we thank you for being with us, and we hope that all the people that watch us today have a very pleasant vacation.
It's always good to talk to you, Gary. Thanks.